time.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hopefully you can hear me. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Mary?
I hear you, Tina.
Hey there.
Mrs. Cleveland. Mrs. Wider.
Here.
Dr. Hawkins.
Here.
Mrs. Moore.
Mrs. Moore, you're muted.
Here. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Simons.
Present.
Everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second it.
It's been moved in second. Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Wider.
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Simons.
Yes.
The motion passes. Next item, Board Appreciation Month.
No,
Yes.
each January, Ohio School Board Association and National School Board Association and associations all across the country join to show appreciation for school boards. And right behind me, it says, "Thank you, school board members, for building the future of public education." And that is what's happened. And so I know we read a resolution. Dr. Phillips, when she ran the last meeting, read a resolution which showed all the great appreciation from Governor DeWine and many others to really pay homage to the great work that's done, not only with this school board, but also school board members across the state of Ohio. And I'd like to call Tanya West Wright to talk about school board in greater detail. Thank you, Tanya.
Good evening, everyone. And I speak on behalf of the entire administrative team that we want to make sure that we thank the Board of Education for all of the support. As we discussed, I think the last time we were on the stage, everything that has happened during the pandemic, we have gone through many challenges this school year. And we thank you for your continued support and the support of all of our students. And all of our students and staff have some very special gifts for you all that are out here on the table. The whole team is probably on Facebook Live watching, and we normally come and bring you gifts and hug and smile, and we can't do all of those things. But they did send their appreciation through gifts. On the table, there's gifts from each building, and I did have to put them in order because some of them are specialized with your name on them. So the first on the table is for Dr. Hawkins, Mr. Simons is in the middle, and then Mrs. Wider. So that is how they're arranged. I don't know if you want to open any since we're a little different. But again, on behalf of the entire team, administrative team, the students and the teachers, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. And there's so much there. So my recommendation, unless we want to have a gift opening party and reading everything, it's probably going to be a 12-hour meeting because there's so much here. And again, on behalf of myself and Mary and the whole cabinet, Dr. Jameson, Ms. Roddy, and the whole gang, thanks to everybody, all the administrators, and especially the kids, some of the individual work in there from the students. It's just amazing. I did have an opportunity to peek a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah.
When it comes to kids, I mean, they're just so touching. And it reminds me of a quick visitation I had at Woodlawn the other day. And Sherry Thompson, the great principal there, pointed to some student work as they reflected on the great work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And when kids are empowered, when kids have an opportunity to express themselves, boy, they do an unbelievable job. Sometimes with a little guidance, sometimes with a lot of guidance, but ultimately on behalf of all the staff and the students, most especially the students, thank you for what you guys do. I know there's a lot that people don't know that you do. There's a lot of reading, there's a lot of research, there's a whole lot of trying to manage someone like me, which I know is probably 2 full-time jobs, but certainly really appreciate the great work that you do. And you'll hear a lot of accolades later, and you guys should feel very proud of you guys creating a system that allows us to do the work that we do so that we can empower kids.
And we were able to deliver the gifts to our board members who are remote today. So thank you. We appreciate you, ladies, as well, Mrs. Cleveland, Mrs. Moore. So
Thank you.
Thank you
I
very
really love my gifts. Thank you very much. All of them. I really appreciate it.
Same here, as you can see. I love them. So
This
thank
one,
you.
quarantine sucks. Yeah, I like that.
yeah. Thank you very much. And like I said, it does go with the theme that we talked about from the first meeting. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's always a great surprise. It's something, I mean, even though every year we have Board Appreciation Month, but we always forget. But I mean, and we're always so delighted and pleased with all the goodies that you give us. So thank you. Okay. And so Mrs. Cleveland is in, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm in now.
All right. Thank you. All right. So the next item is our consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second, I'll second that.
Moved in second. Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Weider.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, district business, approval of an amended appropriation resolution and amended certificate of estimated resources. Motion?
Did we skip one?
Nope,
The Chambers of Commerce?
that's
That
in the
was
consent.
Okay.
Were we going to get some information on that?
Yes.
Did we get it?
It's in our packet, but Mr. Burton, would you like to say
Yeah,
something about that?
If you want to go back to discussion, I'd be glad to talk about that. So all of the chambers that exist, we belong to all of them. And it's critical that we do, especially when you look at our business partnerships. It doesn't take to have us go too far to show the major benefits of joining and participating in Woodlawn, Evendale, Sharonville, Springdale. We're most active with Sharonville. They're the most active chamber that's around. They have events just about every single week. I don't go to every single week, all their activities, but typically I go to a max 2 events a month, but typically 1 for sure. And they're great events. There's great networking, and it has helped us significantly. We have had major donations because of that relationship. We've had partnerships, and the best part of that is the fact that we have students that are currently working, maybe even right now as I speak, in businesses specifically because of connections we made at one of the chambers. And so it's 2,300 and change. I believe I put it in my update. I think it was 2 updates ago that had the whole breakdown. But Sharonville is the most expensive, and then it teeters down.
I just wanted to say I attended a Sharonville Chamber of Commerce meeting this week, and it was a leadership, actually it was last week, a leadership training. And as a board member that tries to do community outreach, it was wonderful. And I was so glad to be part of it. I'm glad you're part of those chambers of commerce.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tom, I would like to add maybe 2 more memberships, and you can tell me if it's duplicative or
Sure.
not worthy in your eyes. And that would be the Cincinnati Chamber and the African American Chamber.
I'll look into those. The Cincinnati Chamber, I know they have members that do come up to different functions, because I have met some people there, and if we'll look to see where the connection is for the African American Chamber, but I feel both of those could be tremendous. So I'll take a look at both.
One more, while you're looking, please add the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as well to your list. Considering that more than 50% of our population is Latina.
No, we don't.
50% of our population is Latina?
Student population? I don't know. Maybe I have the wrong number. What's the number?
It's far below that. But it's still 30%. That is 1/3 of our
30%.
students.
My mistake. But for certain schools, it's a lot higher. But I was just hoping can you add Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, since you're looking at those other 2?
We will look at any and all Chamber of Commerce, and if you have contact information for those 2, that'd
Yes.
be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I do.
Excellent.
Eric Kearney
Thank you.
would be a good one for the African American Chamber.
No, I'm talking about the Hispanic Chamber.
Oh,
John
yeah,
John-
I have someone for you.
Excellent. Thanks. Yeah, you guys just email that to me. We'll get on it right away. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or additions to that? All right, back to district business. Okay. I move that we approve the amended appropriation resolution and amended certificate of estimated resources as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Mrs. Petter?
Just a couple comments that there were 2 changes, good changes to have, one to reflect the large donation that we received last meeting. I'm going to open the door for Mr. Burton to say something there.
That's amazing. $150,000 that was given to us by the Vineyard Church, Cincinnati. And I had an opportunity to speak 3 different times there at services, and appreciate those people that were able to tune into that. One was Saturday and the other 2 were Sunday. And each time, just the warmth of everybody there, and how proud they were to give back, and how they loved the fact that I was honestly able to say there is no digital divide at Princeton. Everybody that needs connectivity can have it. And every time I talk about this, I'm just reminding any person who's listening, if you need connectivity, if you know somebody that does, please reach out to us right away. And now we've talked about this for several months, but almost every time I say it, there's 1 or 2 other people that come up, and it's not frustrating to me. I'm just glad that someone's going to step up and say something, because all of our teachers know that that's available. But last couple of Q&As, if I mentioned that, we'd get an email or 2 where there would be kids that needed connectivity. We're able to do that because of great partnerships, because the Vineyard, $150,000. 2 meetings ago, you heard about Brian Neal from Accelerated Great Schools, $100,000. We had donated money from Johnson & Johnson through the Princeton Closet. There's so much that we received. I mean, it's just been amazing. So being able to close that gap initially was awesome, but then being able to eliminate it is what it is. When you talk about equitable services, when you talk about true equity, and we talk about eliminating some of these barriers that have existed for far too long, when you're on stage and you see this congregation, it's just absolutely amazing to know that there are people that get it, that want to help and support, and also obviously have the wherewithal to do so. So that was wonderful. Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Fantastic.
We do plan for a certain amount of donations, but we have received some very large, very generous donations this year. So we have to increase the appropriation and the revenue side also. And then the other one is a security grant. We've had that grant. This might be the third year in a row that we've applied for this grant, and that application is in process, and we expect to hear from them very soon.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that? Ms. Hatter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Wider,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins.
Yes. Motion passes. Next item of business, a MOU with the Board of Education and PACE.
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Board of Education and Princeton Association of Classroom Educators, PACE, regarding leave provisions.
Second.
It has been moved and second. Any explanation, Mr. Burton?
Yes. If you remember when when COVID first happened, there were some big concerns about what would happen if someone came down with COVID, what happened if there were other issues and some other safeguards for families. When all this came to pass, the federal government stepped in and they provided some support. It was only to last until December 31st. So December 31st comes and goes. There's no extension to this FFCRA. And because of that, that means that if people had COVID and they didn't have any sick time, then they would have to be docked pay. And, we've had great collaboration with both unions, both associations, and really Dr. Jameson's done a tremendous job staying on top of all this. And so basically this MOU is just saying that if you have not used any time from the previous semester and a half, then we're going to grant that time to you. If you've already used the time, then you have to use your sick time. And this is something, again, it's probably going to be a moot point here in a week and a half, because we've heard the federal government is going to extend it. And we heard it may be extended all the way to September. So just to let you know, we feel like we still need to have some safeguards, which is why we are putting this forward, and the union has already agreed to that. The association has already agreed to that as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Mrs. Hatter, please call the roll.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Wider,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, MOU with PSSA.
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Board of Education and the Princeton Sports Staff Association, PSSA, regarding leave provisions.
Second.
It has been moved in second, and that is the very same, Mr. Burton.
It's, the exact same with the exception of 2 items at the end of it.
Okay.
So historically, if we have a snow day, if you will, a catastrophic day, essential employees get called in. Well, the word essential never came up. No, there were no issues. Everybody understood what that was. But because of now essential workers being COVID related, we really had to kind of clean that up. So we talked specifically about what that would look like. And again, Dr. Jameson did a great job pulling everything together. Thank you, Kevin, very much. And we had a quick conversation today to kind of just talk about intent. And so if there's going to be a snow day, if you will, a day, and maybe that is a day we could technically go remote. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but we could. And that's a day technically when kids are in school. So you refer back to the contract, and that means people that got called in, they want to get the same benefit, but we need them to come in. So we understood the intent. Kevin, you have anything on that? Thank you.
So tomorrow morning when the slippery roads, we call them delay or cancellation. That goes into effect. What we're approving tonight.
Well, I believe it would have already been in effect anyway, because, at some point, common sense has to take over.
Yes.
If we're going to tell people we need you to come in to clean the driveways, to make sure you're salting, to prepare the school for inclement weather,
Yes.
all that, because there still will be people that will come in.
Yes.
So we're going to call you in, then we're going to follow the contract. And this is just talking specifically because of the conversation that we've had before, that, if we have a ton of days that we technically wouldn't be in school, or we're not in school, or we go remote, we just want to think through all these potential issues that we could have and try to resolve them quickly. So that's all.
Any other questions? Mrs. Tedder, please call the roll.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes,
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons.
Yes.
motion passes. On to discussion items. The Princeton City Schools Strategic Plan. We have the revised strategic plan that the district has worked on with the additions that we noted. I don't know if Dr. Phillips will make some comments, but there were things, everything that we had, come up with in our other meeting has been addressed or in some fashion. So, don't know. Let me see. Dr. Phillips, and I'm calling you. So like on page 5, when we were talking about some of the statistics, like specifically students economically disadvantaged, can you kind of tell us why that's important to be there?
Yeah, Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
if I may first,
Yes,
just kind of set some things up.
that'd be fine.
Thank you. So we had on, so everybody who's tuning in now, and you tuned in the last board meeting, you know that the strategic plan, it was going to be on the agenda, or it was, and it was pulled. So I just want to be very clear from my lens as superintendent that I know that the strategic plan is a plan that is put forth that drives what we do internally every day, but it's something that the Board of Education oversees and certainly needs support of people internal so that we could put together what we know, what goes on a daily basis. But this is something, the process that happened with it being pulled was a tremendous process because of this reason. The Board of Education has to feel great moving forward with the strategic plan. And even though the strategic plan, I felt very strongly about the last one, I feel stronger about this one. So when we look specifically at a strategic plan, as long as we all understand that this drives what we do internally each and every day, but there's some overarching huge goals that's critical to the Board of Education that we need to make sure that we address, hit with strategies that we believe are rooted in best practices, as well as we know are going to get results. And when I look at the work that was done by so many people in the community, in school, students, Board of Education, it is something that there's so much vestiture in here with so many people, it's amazing. And while I know Dr. Phillips, we talked earlier, and he's going to come up and talk about a couple areas, but there wasn't an area in here that, I mean, we weren't upset, we weren't bothered. This is something that's a great process to have happen. And so with that being said, though, we had a strategic plan, and had we had one that was active and COVID happened, should we stick with the strategic plan that we have and not worry about COVID? Of course not. We would be fast, fluid, and flexible as we look toward making moves because the reality changed. So this strategic plan for the next 3 years, we feel really good about it right now. But reality and things may change. We don't know. We like to think that the pandemic's going to be all done and all that stuff. We're seeing great numbers right now in the county. You know, if you're purple one week, you have to be purple the next week. It does not matter. where your indicators are. You have to have 6 or 7 indicators. Now the county only has 3 indicators. So it's trending in a very, very good direction. Our R value, which we talked about before, is very, very low in comparison to where it's been before. So all the numbers are tracking the right direction, which is excellent. But if something were to happen, we have to be able to be flexible enough to look at the strategic plan and say, hey, we need to tweak it a little bit so we can look at it. Now, I'm not talking about when things get done. I'm not talking about you guys holding me accountable as superintendent for making sure things happen in the strategic plan. I'm talking about whole nother areas that we don't even know may happen. But as long as I said that now, and it's recorded, then we can always go back and say, just like I said, January 25th. But this is a great plan. I thank the Board of Education for taking the time, 2.5 or so hours, to go over it very fastidiously. So thank you. Dr. Phillips, you don't mind talking about those areas, the only areas that we kind of had some questions on. Thank you.
Right. And I do want to acknowledge that she's getting ready for that, but the plan is pervasive and it covers every inch of what we do in our district. And so that part is definitely appreciated.
Okay. I'm going to pull my mask down just so that you can hear me. I think I'm far enough away from everyone. But as Mr. Burton said, we do appreciate the thorough review of the strategic plan. And we took all of that into consideration. As Mr. Burton and I say, this is your plan, and we want to make sure that it is what you feel is going to represent the district. And so Dr. Hawkins and I sat down and had a really good conversation about some of the areas that, that some of those big rocks. So we definitely took care of the commas and the spaces and those kinds of things. So I'm not going to go through all of that. But one of the things that I know that was a concern was the organization of the way that the schools were structured on page 5. So we took all of that into account, and we made sure that the elementaries were on one side and the middle school was on another. Yes.
So Dr. Phillips, if you can, I know Dr. Hawkins wanted the equity conversation. So just the areas that changed.
Okay.
Well,
Well, that did change. That was one of the areas that changed.
Although, as I'm looking, Lincoln Heights is missing from there, from that list, but yeah.
Okay.
But that's the go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Shoot.
I know, it just jumped out.
Tricia and I went through this whole thing again, and we missed Lincoln Heights. Thank you very much. We'll make sure that's added.
But yes, you can go through the big things.
Yes.
The equity, just like the.
Darn it. I'm so sorry. The reason why we felt like 67.7% students economically disadvantaged should remain there is because that is what represents our district. I mean, that is who we are. We get a lot of funding from the fact that we do have this percentage of students in our district. And obviously those funds help us to support those students. And so we felt like we needed to keep that there.
Okay.
So that was that area. We did change the goals so that they spell REACH, which is responsibility, equity, diversity, inclusion, and then academics, and then communication, and then health and safety. So we did make that change. That was one of the things that definitely you all wanted it to be able to spell out. So we did that. There was a change in the strategic planning process, but it was just a comma or and or something like that. So just wanted to share that. We also made sure that the plan represented big bikes and little bikes. So that was there. One of the questions that you had was related to the portrait of a a graduate. And so what we thought, it was kind of a silhouette of a graduate. I know there were some questions about that. So we thought that what represents us is our mascot. And so we put the mascot there. This obviously can be changed, but that was what we actually thought would go there, along with the contributes to society. So we made sure that that was correct. We did make sure that we put not a lot, but some remote learners in there, because there was a lot of pictures that represented in-person students. And so we did make sure that the remote learners were represented. So as you can see that on page 5, on
Dr.
page
Phillips,
9. Yes.
If I could jump in very quickly. So remote, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. This is a plan from 2020, obviously 2021 through 2023. So when you look at that, some may ask, why would you have remote learners in it if that's just here and now? Because we're going to always have that option for students. Now, how that's going to look, it's going to look very different down the line than what it is right now. Okay, it's not going to be anybody who wants to do it can do it. There's going to have to be a lot of forethought. We need to really make sure that there's going to be systems that are going to be in place to ensure that students are going to be successful, and we are going to have a system that will be in place to make that happen. So just want to let you know. And Dr. Phillips, was there any other area that you and Dr. Hawkins talked about that you wanted to address to the board, other than the changes?
Equity. Yeah, goal 2 and equity.
Yes, goal 2 is an area that we definitely changed, in that we added the definition of equity. So as you can see, we stated the goal, and then we said what equity was. Equity is when every student receives what they need to develop their full academic social potential. As a district, we will put systems in place to ensure that every child has an equal opportunity to success, ensuring that personal and social circumstances do not prevent them from achieving their goals. And that is actually taken from our equity plan as well, because what we're trying to do is make sure that they align. And so that is, I know that was a question. So that explains gives a clear definition of what equity is. Another big area.
I thought there were 2 areas that we kind of addressed that we were like, basically what we have down there is we feel really strongly about, or was that just the one area?
One thing
with the percentage?
Each student, we changed the grammar, right? Because, sometimes we had each student, because that was important. We felt to keep the each as opposed to all students. Then it kind of gets, so we did have, we worked on some adjustments in that.
So it was really just that percentage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
So-
That was the only thing on that particular page.
So when you look at the value of time that was spent, the 2.5 hours, wherever the board had given to that last once over, and someone may say, well, geez, you're talking about commas and shouldn't it be bigger picture? Well, the board was involved from the beginning with the bigger picture stuff. So really the last look and talking about the different aspects of it, I found it to be very valuable. And just even with that Lincoln Heights piece, I bet you it's just pulling the text box down. There was no slight, it's just pulling the text box down. So looking at all that stuff, I don't know if you had anything else, Dr. Phillips. And you did a great job, because I knew you ran this. So you did a great job involving everybody. And
Yeah, I hate that Lincoln Heights was missed. We had it there, and when we moved it
you
around.
didn't miss it. It's there. I guarantee you pull the text box down, it's probably right there. No problem.
In the vision section, which is what Lillian is talking about on page 9, the vision says the Princeton City School is committed to preparing each student. I think one of the questions was, could we have all students there? And we felt like we are so we've been, our mission statement talks about empowering each student. We talk about personalized learning so much. We're looking at making sure that each student gets what they need. And so that's why we felt that we would keep each there instead of all students, because it makes it more personal.
The only problem I have is with agreement, because each is singular and they is plural.
I think we
took the day out.
took that out.
Yeah.
I just read it.
Yeah.
I just read it on here.
What page?
What page?
Where she just told us.
Princeton City School is committed to preparing each student to become a lifelong learner and a responsible citizen ready to meet the ever-changing challenges of the future.
Well, we'll take a look at it. We'll give it
I don't see a day there.
one more go to make sure, but you're right with the agreement.
Because
Sure.
I used to cry every Wednesday all the way home when I was getting my master's, because I thought I would never get it right, and he picked it out and helped him out. And his son-in-law is one of our coaches.
All right. Well,
And
Dr.
then-
Phillips, thank you very much. We
Okay.
know, I mean, there's
Is there-
a line, huge effort, not only with this, but also the equity plan, which all the board members have now as well. And then obviously, the great work that's been done under Dr. Phillips' leadership, but also Assistant Superintendent Tanya West Wright with the academic plan. And, we're rolled. There are great things going on, and you cannot argue with the results. Now, we have work to do. We have work to do. But one of the things when you look, I remember 3 years ago, it still was about the negative publicity and what are we going to do? And we need to do more press releases. We need to get more information out. I'm not embarrassed by the coverage, but we get coverage. And when you look at, the great work that was done, Springdale being recognized as national distinction, school to watch. It's amazing with that distinction, the national distinction, only 57. But there was great coverage, and we were all over the news too. The big donation was all over the news. We've had so many positives, and you know what? There's stuff that's going to happen in life. Everything is not perfect, but I will tell you that when you look at that communications goal, where it was and what we've been able to accomplish, we still have to do more work on it. But my goodness, man, when you look at the coverage, and I know I sent you, 10 links or whatever the other day, and wait till you see in my report, I'm going to show you all of the coverage that we've had over the last, Tricia, what are we putting that down, a year and a half? In a year and a half, you're going to see, there's a ton, and it's hard to catch everything. And I try to make sure you guys know about all the time we're being covered, but we get requests all the time because people are seeing and valuing the work that we're doing. And thanks, Tricia, for staying on top of all the different connections. We actually called a news conference, press conference, if you will, for the Springdale Award. And every single person talked to us. Now, not every person came that day. Sometimes we did video, we did Zoom, or they just did the print story, but we're getting coverage. And that dogged nature, when you look at that communications goal and you look at our other goals in the strategic plan, that drives what we do. So again, thank you very much, Dr. Phillips.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I had a question about page 5 of the strategic plan. I really think it looks a lot better. And one of the things about Princeton that we constantly brag on about ourselves is that we're one of the most diverse school districts in the state of Ohio. But you would never know it by reading page 5. So I was going to suggest, if you all would consider, that we put on page 5 our ethnic makeup, like the percentage of Latina, the percentage of the different groups of people that make Princeton, which makes Princeton unique. I think that number and that information would be much more of interest to a parent who might want to consider Princeton as a place for their children to see the diversity than to see the 68% students who are economically disadvantaged. It's just a suggestion, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it, but I think showing our diversity, I think will make this page look even better.
Okay, it's noted,
I took that note.
right.
My only point, and I'm in partial agreement with Gina, and that's also on page 5. The disadvantage economic number is kind of misleading if you're trying to describe the Princeton district as a whole. That may be accurate for our student body. It's not accurate as our district as a whole. What Gina is referencing is our ethnic makeup is just as relevant to a lot of people as the number of people that are economically disadvantaged.
Right.
And even that doesn't represent the district as a whole. So I would not want us to mislead, and it just depends on who the audience is for this number and how we're describing the Princeton brand.
And you know, and our audience is pretty much an internal audience in terms of the people that are trying to put together their academics. I mean, yes, outsiders can look at it, but the functioning of it is internal. So, but yeah, we can look at that. So, and again, a lot has gone into it, and you know, I think we pretty much have covered everything in terms of, you know, you work here, this is what you know you have to work on to help give our students that kind of experience that we expect them to have.
So that would make the ethnic breakdown even more critical if we're talking about an internal audience, if you added that number to it.
I think you have to, for the continuity of this, I think you have to either add the complete demographics, or you need to only put what's in there, generally speaking. So I think you either have to take out the students economically disadvantaged, or keep it in there and add the other piece. But you know, when we've looked at all this stuff, we've looked at it a bunch of different ways and all that stuff. So this is, you know, we certainly can, that's the board's desire, we certainly can put that in or take the other one out.
I think we also looked at it from the standpoint of these are our subgroups. So every time we talk about subgroups, we talk about students with disabilities, English learners, economically disadvantaged. I mean, that's the way that we those are the kind of conversations we have, particularly when we look at our data. We look at it from that standpoint as well, from those subgroups. So I think that's one of the reasons why we put it in there, but it is your choice.
No, that's why I mentioned who the audience was for this. And if it's an internal audience, then, and that's the way you break things down, then that makes 100%. If it's an external piece, then you might want to enrich page 5, as Thomas suggested. So if this is internal,
So
Well, there's nothing internal in public schools,
right?
I mean, so it's always this is.
On the website.
I'm not saying we're trying to hide the information.
No,
I'm
no, no,
saying
no.
the
I understand. I wasn't saying it any other way. But when you look at the driving force of what this is, this strategic plan, and I would say go to whatever industry you're in, and then say that you actually, whatever you put out for internal to drive a district, a company forward, say, do you give that to every one of your customers, or do you give that to every one of your clients? And do you expect them to read it to 10, 15, 20, or 100 page document? You don't do that. This is to drive us forward. But this is available for anybody in the public, and there's lots of pages here, so it's going to be a QR code when we send it out. We want people to look at it for sure. to see what's important for all of us, but the board's plan. So we have no problems looking at page 5, because guess what? We're still doing the work right now. We are working. We're not waiting for this to do work.
Right.
So if it takes a couple more meetings, it takes a couple more meetings. It's all good.
Yeah.
We need to make this right. And so if that's what you guys would like us to do, we'll make sure that we get that in there.
And even when we have it right, so to speak, I mean, it's evolving, and we will constantly be, I mean, as the staff and everybody looks at it, things are changing as you try to meet your goals, or as you do meet them, or as you don't. You're constantly, it's fluid. So the work does continue. We just need to kind of accept it as our starting place, and you know, and how we're moving through it for the next 3 years. So, but yeah, it doesn't stay static.
So
And I just have one question.
Yes, Ms.
Oh,
Moore.
I thought somebody else was talking. Oh, you want me to go? Okay. I was just gonna say, I thought that 68.7% number of students that are economically disadvantaged, isn't that based solely on the number of children who fill out a form for free lunch?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there any way do you all actually double check that to see the family's income, or it's just whatever's filled out, but okay, you answered the question. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So as we kind of move forward with that, and again, all the other additional, you know, suggestions are noted. Can we accept this as our plan as we do move forward? Any objections to that?
I still don't like the 68.7%, would rather show the ethnicity. I don't think 68.7% is relevant to the average person.
Well, we've noted your request for ethnicities as demographic breakdown, so that will most likely be added. So, like I said, it's a fluid document, but the fact that, you know, the document itself is what we're trying to approve, that this is where we're starting.
Well, if I could just add very quickly, one of the things that we've all reflected on, in fact, Dr. Phillips and I talked about this, is that the strategies, the objectives, and the goals are not what we're talking about. So
Right.
that made us all feel really good that there was great work that was done, and you saw the value of it. We're talking about other things that could change very quickly. You're talking about the demographics, numbers can go in, they could go out, but that's not going to change what we're doing with the strategic plan. So for us to move forward, we can still move forward. And what Dr. Hawkins just said, that the acceptance of this doesn't mean that there's still not going to be little tweaks or whatever. We could do stuff. But the big overarching, the most important aspect of the strategic plan, you guys basically 100% signed off on and saw that it made sense and what we're doing. So that to me would be my only push, is that we're not talking about the big rocks. We're talking about some of the little things that could be changed, quite frankly, at any point. That doesn't mean they're not important, but they're certainly not more important than the goals that you guys have established.
Hey, you guys did a great job with the plan. Overall, it's a good plan. I just need everybody on the board agree to get rid of that economically disadvantaged. And I know I keep bringing it up, but I want that gone.
No, we didn't all agree on that. I think it's important because of the funding sources and that it's a part of the data that is descriptive of the district. Even no matter what it is, it helps to shape the district, and it can't pretend it's not there. And I think, you know, your comment about adding other demographic groups, we can do that. We can add that to it. But
Yeah.
I don't agree with getting rid of the
But
number.
I think there's 5 people on the board and 3 of us did. The majority did agree to remove that. So now you're coming back today saying you want to put it back.
No, I didn't realize we were voting on it. And that,
No, we didn't vote, but the majority of us wanted it removed.
So let me make a suggestion. How about we take a look at it both ways? Take a look at it with all the demographic information and the free and reduced lunch, and then we take a look at it, or you guys take a look at it with just the economically disadvantaged number out. Because when the subgroup for sure, that makes sense. That's internal. And that's to John's point. If it's just internal, that's fine. We already know. But this is, and anything we put out and we do is always a marketing piece, no matter how you look at it. So we'll take a look at it just so that we can move on. We'll take a look at it for sure. We'll look at it both ways. We may actually have a whole rewrite of page 5, and then we'll see if that's the only impediment for us moving forward. And we can make it look any way you guys want. But, again, to Dr. Hawkins' point, the plan itself to move forward, to keep us, I mean, we're going anyway. So like I said, you guys can take all the time you need for this strategic plan because we're still doing the work.
Thank you, Mr. Burton, for all the hard work you and your staff did on this plan. It is a good plan.
Okay. So can we approve what we have and with the changes that are coming? Well, why don't we do this? I make a motion that we approve the plan as we have it at this point, knowing that there will be changes to the plan as we move forward.
Second.
We'll have to amend the agenda. It was just a discussion topic for today.
Okay.
Okay.
So I amend the agenda that we approve the plan. So I need a second to that amendment.
Second.
Mr. Simons has seconded.
Can we just keep it as a discussion topic and just vote on it next time?
I'd like to vote on it and see where we are. We have the vote out there, so I guess if you disagree, we can vote it down. So right now we have the amendment made, a motion for amendment, and it's been seconded. So let's see where that goes. So Mrs. Petter, call the roll.
Mrs. Wider,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
No.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
So the motion passes to amend the agenda and so we can vote on the strategic plan. The motion was to approve the strategic plan as we have it presented, knowing that there will be additions, corrections to the plan. I made that motion. Mr. Simons seconded that motion. And so now, Mrs. Petter, call the roll.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Wider.
Yes.
And the motion passes. And I thank you all for that. And we will, again, comments as you get a chance to look at it even more, any other additions or whatever, we will adjust. So,
And just one final thought, sorry.
okay, go ahead.
As changes may occur, we'll do the same thing that we've always done with Polaris.
Mhm.
With any type of document, we'll bring it back to the board, explain where the changes were, why we made the change, and ask for an approval. So this is something that may revolve quite a few times, especially when you look at, again, when you look at the last strategic plan, there wasn't one school district in the world that said, hey, in case there's a huge pandemic that happens, we need to go to remote learning, we need to do all these things. So things may come up and we may need to change.
And you're looking at it as on a monthly basis and you're in meetings and
Yeah, so our cabinet meetings, we meet twice a month. And in our cabinet meetings, we align the discussion pieces that we have with the strategies or goal areas. And the very first one, first couple meetings we've had, but the last one specifically, it was really good. And it takes some thinking because so much of what we do is just natural. Of course, everything we do is to the goals we have, but when you sit there and you're like, oh, well, let me match it up to this strategy, because those strategies, that's not an ending spot. That's a starting spot. There are other strategies that we employ. We would have a 1,000-page strategic plan that nobody would be able to lift, except for maybe Kevin, because he's working out a lot. But other than that, when you look at a strategic plan and moving forward, we constantly are talking about it and looking at it. So yes, thank you.
Well, and thank you, as we move forward and looking at work session topics, certainly the strategic plan will be a work session topic at some point again. What other work topics? Okay, well, Mrs. Petter's passing out the topics that we had, that we have brought up before. So I don't know, Mrs. Moore and Mrs. Cleveland, if you have this.
Gina and Mary have shared it with you in email.
Okay, so you have the email. So we have topics for this year. The strategic plan was obviously one. The 5-year forecast is listed in April and October. I know over the years we have mentioned such things as special ed, trying to better understand how that works. I think it has to be a little more specific. I know that's one, Mr. Simons, that you've brought up. Any other topics that have been on your mind that we need to add to this list?
I would like to see gifted and talented on there.
Okay.
I would also like to see if there is a renewal of CARES funds or whatever the new acronym is. CARES from the feds and how that positively or negatively affects us.
And SR2. Yes, SR2.
SR2.
So in case you guys hear that. Sorry, my mic was off.
And
So SR2, ESSR2, and that's how, if you start hearing that term, there's so many acronyms or so many terms that are thrown out there, but that's what you would hear.
Okay.
and then the voucher piece and where it is currently.
What do you
Meaning
mean by
that-
vouchers?
Meaning that if they designate a failing school and their
Good choice.
students start leaving
Oh,
and
at
then we
choice.
have to pay for it, so we probably need to have an update, a running update on that.
Ed choice then.
I'll put that in my report for the regular board meeting.
Okay,
So when you look at that, I'm going up this Thursday to meet with some legislators to talk specifically about fair funding, talk about what's going on with that choice, because there's a whole bunch going on there. And it may not even impact us at all. Other than the biggest piece, which is the legislative segregation, which is actually happening, which is what this is, to me, it's sickening. But the whole money piece, that may be moot to us from a money piece, but from a philosophical piece, which is, I would say, much more damaging to look at what happens, to districts. It's just terrible. But for sure, I could do that. That doesn't necessarily have to be a work session topic. It can be, but I
okay,
can give
I
you
mean,
the
that's
updates.
fine. That's just-
Mr. Burton, when does the state report card usually come out?
Tanya, do you want to answer that? I have no problems answering all those questions, but Tanya, do you
no.
mind? Because you may,
The reason I'm asking is because I was hoping a month or two before the state report card comes out, you could give us a rundown of where we are, so that there will be no surprises when the report card comes out.
So we usually get some preliminary data back in June, and then we get another set in July. So it rolls out throughout the summer. The state usually releases the report card in September, I believe. So I think there's always some surprises leading up. We can tell you as we step along, but they release it out in layers to us as well. So the first time they'll say, this is your just preliminary who passed which assessment type information. And then they do another report where they clean that up. And then they do another report where they add value added. So there's usually surprises along the way for all of us, but we can keep you, they only give you a portion at a time. And then they give you the final portion maybe 1 or 2 weeks before it's public. So I think that's sometimes where the quick turnaround comes, where we don't have the data until 1 week before it goes out to everyone. So
if you remember 2 years ago in June, we gave an update to the Board of Education on the preliminary results. Now, last year, of course, we're in the middle of the pandemic. But so if you go back, if you look at what we did 2 years ago, that's would be the standard practice. Say, these are the preliminary results. They could swing a little bit, but we're not talking about major swings. We're talking about percentage points. But ultimately, it would certainly give you a breadth of where we are and what to expect.
Could
And
we-
also, go ahead,
Go
Gina.
ahead. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
We also, prior to this, the report card going out, we put out our quality profile, which is the best way to judge a district when you look overarching at so many different areas. So we put that out beforehand. However, this fall, everybody agreed, all the schools that put out quality profiles agreed not to put out quality profiles right away because the report card, it's crazy. And then for everybody, and then when you look at what's this last couple of weeks, there have been more people that have just started throwing out the quality profile. So you'll see that, and ours will be on a QR code as well when we send that out. And we have, again, great work being done. We're not perfect. We have a lot of work to do. But when you look at, again, when you look at where we're at, I don't ever want to, and I will never, ever, ever agree that this state testing system is fair, it's equitable. It is not. It never has been and never will be. So as long as I'm superintendent, and if the whole community wants to live or die by a report card, then that's fine. They can find another superintendent. And I'm not mad at the board, but I get very frustrated when on one day, our kids are going to be compared with kids that are so very different, and our kids are going to be compared there, and it's not fair. It's not equitable. It is horrendous. I've said it's racist before. I've said it's racially biased before. I've said all those things. And while I have great friends that work up at ODE, and I think they do a great job, this is one area where they've missed the mark. I've had legislators say to me that, Tom, if you don't have this accountability system testing, how are you going to know how kids are going to fall? I said, do you know when we get those results? We get the results sometimes 2.5, even 3 months after the fact. And that's going to tell us what to do with kids? There shouldn't be one person listening right now that thinks that makes any sense at all. So you take a test, you don't get it back for 3 months. And then we're supposed to use that data to do anything with it? It makes no sense at all to me. I understand why it first came into play, because we didn't fight hard enough as educators. That's why it came in. When it first came out and it was a 9th grade proficiency test, everybody's really upset. People said it was too easy. They moved it to the 8th grade, and then people are like, well, why are you doing a 9th grade test in 8th grade? If 75% of the state passes it, why would you make that? And they're like, oh, well, maybe we should have a 4th, 6th, and 8th grade and a 10th grade Ohio graduation test. We didn't take control over it, and that's why it got out of control. We didn't take care of the business as educators, and we let other people try to control. And this is what happened. A multi-million-dollar business, the state spends $70 million or something on this a year, $1 million just to link teachers to value-added scores, and we can't use that money to do other things different when we're formatively assessing every day, diagnostic testing minimally once a quarter to really kind of get a gauge to see where kids are. So I understand the report card and the public looks at that. That's why I do a quality profile. But to me, the work that we do, I don't want to be judged on a test that I don't think is equitable.
You bring up some very valid points, but Dr. Hawkins, I just want to suggest that we add as a workshop topic the preliminary state report card. Either do that in June, July, or August. And while Mr. Burton brings up some good points, and I agree with a lot of it, I still would like to see that in June, July, and August. So could you add that to the list?
I have that on the list.
I'd like to also add, if we could look at, due to the pandemic, how we're addressing the gap. Is there any plan in place? And if so, what are we going to do? Or what's coming down the pike? Anything that helps us in terms of the school district to really deal with the gap that is created. The other thing, another topic would be understanding our district. We talk about property taxes and commercial taxes and all the things that go along with how we look at our funding piece. And I know there's always a question whenever we go up for levies in terms of the public actually understanding it. I'd like to spend at least some time on just laying that out. How do we deal with the funding piece of our district?
Okay. Noted. Anything else? I know I've heard Mrs. Moore, you talk about preschool. And
Yes,
is that
ma'am.
something that you think we need to?
Yes, yes. I'm so glad, Dr. Hawkins, you brought that up because I was just thinking about that. The education or whatever plans the district has in terms of the pre-K group.
And
That is a topic I'd love to hear about.
and Mr. Simons, I've heard you talk about PTA. Is that something you want to be a topic or not?
I think it's a national strategic plan,
Okay.
so I'm not sure it's as much of an issue.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Again, I'm trying to think of the things that you guys have mentioned from time to time that you want it talked about so that if we can get it all kind of listed, then we can plan.
The
Yeah,
other
I would
topic,
say,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say with the pre-K, can we incorporate in that projections in terms of kids even prior to 3? If we have that information, whether in terms of a district, just overall, I want to make sure we're capturing what's happening with, kids coming into the district. Or what should we anticipate?
Mayor, are you talking about even looking at maybe birth rates and
Exactly.
all
That's
that?
good. That's good.
Yeah, just so that we can start to anticipate. I mean, it still goes down the line, the question that I had before in terms of, and this is for all schools across the country, not just us, but as we look at the young kids right now, they're not going to be socialized the way that their brothers and sisters have been in the past. And saying that, what difference will that make in terms of how we prepare for them? So to get some idea of what the numbers look like, even before they get to pre-K, would be good.
That's great.
That's
I
good.
like that too.
And that really ties in, I guess, with another topic that's kind of come up, and that's enrollment and buildings.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Yes.
Where do we go when we fill up?
While we're rolling on that subject, the before school and after school care.
Before school and after school care.
Yes.
As a district responsibility or what?
No, not necessarily, but as a
Snapshot in time. What are we doing now? Yeah.
the district is either hosting or should be hosting, meaning the buildings. Someone can come in and have a contracting center, or maybe the district, if we're talking about pre-K and younger, maybe the district does have a role.
Okay, that's noted.
I have
Any
one
other
more
topic?
Yes, Dr. Hawkins, I have one more, and I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, but I'll describe what I'm trying to say. I think our student population, the caretakers for them, has changed drastically. I'm wondering what we currently do or need to do in terms of providing or sharing information with grandparents who are the primary caregivers. Grandparents, foster parents, step parents. How do I phrase that? Do you understand what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say is the non-traditional parent. I'm wondering what we do now, if we need to do anything at all, and what the demographics show in terms of Princeton and grandparents and foster parents for our students. Do you see what I'm saying?
Not totally. I don't know if somebody else can articulate. You're just talking about parent care. I mean, kids who are not living with traditional parents and how
Right.
and helping them.
What are we doing in terms of providing resources for grandparents? And the reason I'm saying that is I run into some parents who were actually grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. And there are many tools that they need and they've asked about, which I just referred them to the district. But I thought about wondering whether, I don't know everything. And so I just referred them to the district, but we may be doing some things right now for foster parents, and we may be doing some things right now for grandparents that I think would be very good to know. Or if we're not, maybe we need to, because people are living longer. You've got a lot of situations and housing situations where there are blended families, there are older parents. It's just a combination of things. And I'm just curious in terms of what is Princeton doing, or do we need to do anything at all in terms of supporting the non-traditional parent, foster parent, grandparent? That's all.
Okay. All right, it's noted.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
Yes.
Our equity plan,
yes.
if we could put that February 22nd. And
Okay,
then this is just what I'm thinking, as I'm trying to prioritize the time of the year.
right.
So for March 22nd would be the gaps, but specifically we'll talk about summer school at that point,
All right,
what that would look like. Then obviously the 26th is 5-year forecast, but I put in there, Chris, I don't know if this is too much, I put an ESSER in there too, maybe as a joint conversation. May 22nd, if we're looking at pre-K and birth rates, I think that'd also be a good time to talk about the enrollment projections perhaps, and the before and after school program. The 28th would be the report card. The 26th would be gifted and talented. And then I have both August 23rd and November 22nd as academic updates. I feel very strongly about that. We need to have that, where we're at. We'll talk about benchmarking on the August 23rd, and then where we're at with that on November 22nd.
Where would we
Academic
put
update.
the non-traditional support for grandparents and foster parents?
Well, I think right now we need to take a look at it, because we have parent educational series right now. That's certainly not enough, but we need to do more for parents as well. So
Yeah.
maybe this is a whole big overarching one. And this is where schools, it's always been this, parents there's this Latin phrase in loco parentis, that in place of the parent when you come to school. And then when kids go home, they're parents again. And I know that's a very old term, obviously, but that's the way it always was.
Right.
And so when you look at where do we put our resources to do stuff? We've talked about parent academies. People didn't like that name. We talked about parent institutes. Now we're doing parent educational series. There's more certainly that we can do. And I think the ESSER funds coming up, if we're able to use them the way that I think we can use them, I think we'll be able to perhaps put something together. But that would be my recommendation right now, that we roll this. We could modify this and add anything at any point, but just so that we get something down.
Yeah, that's fine. That's helpful, because I was just getting ready to ask them what kind of priority we would give. Mrs. Petter, did you get all
I
of
got
that
a lot of great stuff.
you got
I'll start the ball rolling.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Everybody's got the link to the shared document.
okay.
And the only thing I don't see is special ed.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can figure out a grouping that can also go into.
Okay.
Could you do that when you're doing the gifted during the same time? Or it wouldn't be enough time, would it?
It could
Well,
be.
we could look at where that was.
Yeah, it could be.
Tom, wouldn't the foundation of giving each student or all students what they need to succeed, would that not fall under equity? Meaning, if part of what they need to succeed is for the local parentis to have information and tools, would that not fall under our equity plan? Or maybe I'm going to go another step and say that would have to be part of the equity plan, because maybe there's some deficits in the homes that have to be taken care of if we are truly going to do this plan.
Sure.
Okay.
And Dr. Hawkins, just as we close, I just wanted to say just a couple very quick
Okay.
things.
All right, let me just make sure we're through with that. And Mrs. White,
sorry.
you didn't
I'm
say
sorry.
anything. Do you have anything to add? Anything at all? Okay.
All right, thank
Mr.
you.
Burton?
So you know that we are going to participate in the vaccination program. So just for everyone's edification, there's a couple different entities that we kind of fall under. We're all under Hamilton County Public Health, but we also have Springdale, City of Springdale Health Department. So City of Springdale Health Department is going to take care of the staff at Heritage Hill who are going to voluntarily choose to take the vaccination. So it's Springdale and Heritage Hill, they're going to start February, I think the first date is the 4th, or is it just the 5th? Dr. Phillips, is it just 4th or 5th, or both days?
Vaccinations.
At Heritage Hill and Springdale. I know it's the 5th for sure, but I don't know if it's the 4th and the 5th, but nevertheless, we have those, we have that going on. The rest of the schools, we're waiting for Hamilton County to roll things out. So we've talked to Health Connections as a partner, Mercy as a partner, and also Kroger as a partner. Now, Kroger says they can do like an enormous amount of vaccinations in 6 hours. I think it was 1,600 they said they could do in 6 hours. Now, that's just not going, it's not just going to all be Princeton. So remember, they're doing a Moderna, so there's 2 different vaccinations that happen. So we feel very good about Heritage Hill and Springdale being able to go through the full cycle. Once you get information with the rest of the district, we'll let everybody know when that's going to be. Not typically, it has been said that all of the vaccinations will take place off of school property as of right now, but we're excited about that program. We feel that's given a lot of people confidence, which is wonderful. The research still continues to be the same, that the safest place are schools. Joe Biden, new president, said that students need to be in school. Dr. Fagans, who's a leading expert in our area, has said schools are the safest place. In fact, we watched a video of it, saw it. It actually was on that news story, right, Tricia? So right after I spoke, he spoke and he said it. And so we know that that's the safest place. And this is what I want, anybody listening, I want the same litmus test that you hold us to, that we do in our own personal lives. So if I want our kids in school full time, that's what I want. I think it's the best thing for them, but I also know that some people are going to choose remote, and we're still going to have a remote option. But when you look at the data, and we were involved in this study, the data is very, very clear that if you are 6 feet away or you are right next to somebody in school, because of all the following protocols, the variance is insignificant in terms of contact, and you have contact with somebody who's positive for COVID and then you develop COVID. They've not been able to see a difference. There's been no variance. And because of that, what they said is as long as you wear a mask, as long as you sanitize, as long as you follow protocols and you socially distance the best that you can, and you follow all these, you're not going to be more likely to get COVID based upon your close contact with somebody in school, whether or not you're right next to them or you're 6 feet away. So that was a very fascinating aspect of the study. So we feel really strongly that with the vaccination program, all the continued research, what we're seeing, that March 1st would be a great day to bring back the Scarlet and Gray students. So they come back to school, remote still stays remote. But for the Scarlet and Gray students, they come back together. And if somebody in Scarlet or somebody in Gray is a little bit concerned and that makes them nervous, then we'll say, no problem, you can go remote. I just hope that if that's how you feel and you're really concerned about that the behavior at home and when you go out to restaurants, or hopefully you're not going out to restaurants, because what we've seen, and I'm just going to be honest, and I don't always say the politically correct thing, so this is probably one of these, but when people talk about what the school is doing, you're not doing enough, but they really haven't said that. Or if you're bringing back Scarlet and Gray kids, you're putting all these kids in harm's way, and me and my family. If you believe that, then I should not see you without a mask on in Kroger. And the person who I saw on Sunday, I'm not saying your name, but I know that exists. And so you can't try to hold people accountable for one thing and you don't behave that way. It's the same thing for any of our staff members or whatever that may have some concerns about that, but yet their kids are going to school every day. And they've been going to school every day all year long. But yet it's not okay for our kids to go to school every day. So really, I just want consistency. So if you're really, really worried, then be really worried when you leave school. Parents, when the kids come home, behave that way consistently, and I think we're going to be much better off. But we feel very strongly March 1st. Now we're still working on some details, right, Dr. Phillips? Sweat's right, and Tricia and Kevin, everybody. We're still working on some details for that. So stay tuned, but the goal would be March 1st. And we need to, again, we'll give some more information when it draws closer. Thank you.
Dr. Hawkins, I have a question, please.
Yes.
I hope I heard it correctly, but it sounds, Mr. Burton, that you're saying the vaccinations for the teachers and staff will be in February, and you're still working out the details, and that in March, your dream, your hope would be that everybody would come back to school. But doesn't the quarter end March 12th? Because I'm wondering, are you saying that you want things to change at the end of the quarter, which ends March 12th? When you say March, are you talking the 1st of March? Because it appears, I've never been a teacher, but it seems that there's only 2 weeks left in the current quarter. If you know what I'm saying? If you bring them, if it has to be March 1st, if that's your drop dead date, that means you're making changes at the end of the quarter instead of after the quarter ends March 12th. Or maybe I'm hearing it wrong.
Oh, no, you heard it right, March 1st, and the quarter does end March 12th. When we talked about it internally, we looked at what's in the best interest of kids. So we know the data, we see the data, and the data shows that kids are all over the place where they are grade-wise and so forth. So what a great time to bring kids back the last couple weeks so that some of the kids really need that extra intervention so that they could actually achieve at a level that they need to make sure that they're going to be able to graduate, to make sure that they're going to be able to move to the next grade level, to make sure that they're going to be able to learn. We've been out of school, and again, I think we've done a great job.
Yeah.
We've done the best that we possibly can do, but there's not one teacher, not one principal, not one director, assistant superintendent, associate superintendent, executive director of HR. Nobody has said to me that our kids are thriving. Nobody has said to me that the data shows, Tom, that we can continue to do what we're doing. But I have great confidence with what we're doing. We're doing the best that we can. We're getting the best results we can. But are they the same results? To Mary's point earlier, what about these gaps? Mm-hmm. And we have busted our tails, but there's still going to be these COVID gaps. Yeah. And so the longer we wait, then it's just we're putting more kids in harm's way.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the times we're going to be in really good shape in the schools. The counselors have worked overtime, giving them major praise, and the administrators and all the great work that's done in the buildings. It's amazing. Yeah. To be able to make this happen. But yes, it's very intentional. March 1st is very intentional to give kids another opportunity.
Your staff, the teachers, the administrators have done a yeoman's job. And I'm just so proud of how things are going. But I was just curious, from a teacher or a staff member's perspective, does it put extra pressure on them that in the last 2 weeks of the quarter, they're going to get an influx of kids where they would have been getting more after March 12th anyway? I'm wondering, do those 2 weeks really make, I guess you have a reason why it has to be March 1st.
The staff members that may be reaching out to any board members, hypothetically, let me just say to the board members, just always direct those staff members back to us. Don't entertain those conversations, because that puts everybody in a bad way. And then the staff members, I hope, would have had that conversation with their building level principal. If they didn't feel comfortable, they could have had that conversation with the union. We feel we have great confidence in our staff. Yeah. Their students that are scarlet right now are in person. The gray students that are not in person, that are at home learning, are still their students. So when they come back, they're getting their students. And again, we have great confidence in the fact, and I will tell you that our teachers are amazing.
Yeah, they
And
are.
when we look specifically at doing what's best for kids, we could always wait. We could wait to the end of the year.
Yeah.
We could do that. And then when we look at, I just want to remind everybody that when we look back at decisions we make now, they all seem great.
Yeah.
But in 5 years, we'll see how great they were.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I've maintained this the whole time. We looked at this in November. We looked at bringing kids back. We chose not to. I think that was a right call. But I do believe that right now we'd be doing kids a disservice if we don't bring them back March 1st.
Yeah.
I
However,
think,
be that as it is, we still may not be able to, as we're still trying to work on some things.
Yeah, I just
But
asked the
that's
question based
the-
on the calendar. I'm not asking the question based on any conversation or anything. I just looked at the calendar and it looked like March 12th was the end, and you confirmed that for me. And I just thought the 2 weeks rush, but if your people can handle it, I guess they can.
I think as a former teacher, and maybe Mrs. Whiter has something to say about that, having the kids all together is not that, I don't know what the word, it's not disruptive. I don't think it's going to be as disruptive to the teachers as you might think it is, because
Yeah.
they're teaching the same lessons. They've been teaching them every week and then teaching them again the next week. So, to have all their kids in the room and to go through the lessons, I don't think that's going to be upsetting to them to just
That's good.
do that.
Thank
weeks
you.
Before. That's my opinion as a former
And
teacher,
I
but
think they'll be so happy to be back to normal that they'll probably learn more.
That's
The
good.
kids
Thank you.
I wanted to clarify, it's one day, February 5th.
February 5th. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
what is February 5th?
That's the when their vaccination program starts for Heritage Hill and Springdale. It'll be just the 5th. And it's, if you said it's 4 to
6 is Springdale.
4 to 6 and 6 to 8.
6 to 8 is
Okay.
Heritage Hill.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips.
Now, staff and teachers,
Oh.
they don't have to take the vaccine. It's just an option, right?
This is completely voluntary.
That's
Yes.
good.
Okay.
I'm getting mine tomorrow at Springdale, for the record.
Okay. Any other questions then? I think we have covered a lot of ground.
Well, one question I have, hopefully, Tom, that you and your staff will get theirs taken on that first available opportunity.
Well, again, the staff, I don't know. That's totally up to them, but I will tell you
I
that.
mean, those that want.
Yeah, I will tell you, I will be there shortly before 4 o'clock that first day. And I've talked to the Springdale Health Department and all that stuff. And there may be some other central office people, because that is the first time they have availability and they set time away. So that's why we could do that. So I hope to be first in line, but I will not be the first staff member that's done that. We have several staff members actually that have started the protocol, whether they were able to make other arrangements or they were first, the first responders and so forth. But
No, I'm glad
Yeah.
that you're doing that, so that you are, showing that you're going to take it, you're going to survive, and not get huge
Well,
afterwards.
Well, and there was something else that came up too that I know we put in the last Friday update, but there's people that had COVID before,
Yes.
and there's a thought that, well, you don't need to get the vaccination. So if I would have had COVID last month, I wouldn't need to get the vaccination, but that's a misnomer.
Yes.
Now some doctors say don't get it because somebody else really needs it. And I understand that too, but here's the thing. We don't know about the availability of the vaccine. So we had staff members that had COVID that said, well, I'm just going to wait. But if you wait, you may miss out on this opportunity, or it may fall to somebody else, or it may be easier to get. But right now we know we have the slots. We're really excited to know about the rest of the district. And then when we do, we'll act accordingly. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? If not, I move to adjourn the meeting at 7:58 p.m.
I second it. I'll second it.
Been moved in second. Mrs. Cutter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins.
Yes. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the gifts.